All right, let's dive into something pretty wild. A massive global movement that somehow operates with almost no central control. So, the huge question is, what's the glue? What holds it all together?
Okay, first to get a sense of scale, we're talking about an organization with more than 2,500 independent bases all over the world. Yeah, 2,500. They're basically everywhere, from the Himalayas all the way to the Amazon jungle.
And right away, you see the puzzle, right? How do you possibly keep a single identity, a single mission with that many locations and basically no top-down control? Like, how do you get everyone pulling in the same direction?
Well, the answer is in its incredible structure. People call it a starfish organization. And the idea is, honestly, so simple but so powerful. Power and knowledge aren't held at the center. They're spread out everywhere. So if you cut off an arm, the whole thing doesn't die. Nope. That arm can actually regrow, or even become a whole new starfish on its own.
Now think about how different that is from a typical spider organization. You know, the kind with a central head, a CEO, a main office. With a spider, you take out the head and the whole thing just collapses. But a starfish network, it's literally built to survive, to be resilient, and even to multiply.
So, what's the secret sauce here? Well, the organization we're looking at is called Youth with a Mission, or YWAM for short. And here's the key. It's not a rule book that holds them together. Not at all. It's this deep, shared cultural code, basically a shared DNA that everyone in the organization lives and breathes.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's actually break down this DNA, starting with the very foundation, the source code, if you will. What's the absolute core of it all?
It really all comes down to one core value, knowing God. And they break this down into three really practical steps. First, know God's character. Second, know His will in any given situation. And third, know God's ways, how He tends to work.
And you have to understand, this isn't some vague philosophical thing. They treat it like the actual source code for the entire organization. Everything else, how they lead, how they handle money, you name it, is programmed to flow from this one foundational value. It's the beginning of everything they do.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. Because this shared DNA, it opens the door for a totally radical and, honestly, sometimes chaotic approach to leadership.
Think about this. Most places come up with a project, then find people to do it. YWAM flips that script completely. They find passionate people, a lot of times young people without a ton of experience, and then they build projects, or even whole new centers, around them. And yeah, you can imagine, from the outside it can look like pure chaos. So that begs the question, right? How do you bring any stability to that kind of beautiful chaos? How do you keep it from just flying apart without totally crushing all that energy and vision?
Well, they have this concept they call the tripod. It's like a three-legged stool for stability. You've got freedom on one leg, letting people run with their vision. But the other two legs balance it out. Spiritual eldership, which is basically mentorship from experienced leaders, and a huge focus on strong relationships. That's their version of checks and balances.
And that focus on relationships, that's the next piece of the puzzle. It's really the cultural glue holding this whole thing together.
The whole culture is built around relationships, not rules. I mean, get this, if a team is out somewhere and they run into a conflict, they have permission to put the entire mission on hold. The number one priority isn't finishing the task, it's fixing the relationship. It's about restoring that unity.
And that just shows the difference so clearly, doesn't it? In a normal company, you'd pull out the manual and ask, what does the rule book say? Here, the first question is, hey, how are we doing? How's our relationship? The thinking is, if the team is unified, the mission will take care of itself. It all comes down to trust and communication, not policy.
So this focus on values doesn't stop there. It goes right into what is, for most organizations, the trickiest part, money.
Yeah, there's no central pot of money that pays everyone's salary. The financial model is decentralized, just like everything else. Every single person is responsible for raising their own support. And the idea behind it is that it's not just about the money. It's about building a team of people who are right there with you, invested in what you're doing both personally and financially.
And this is the model that fuels their actual work on the ground, which they describe as a three-stranded cord. They believe that to have a real lasting impact, you need three things woven together. You need evangelism, sharing the message. You need practical help, meeting people's physical needs like food or medicine. And you need training, discipleship for long-term growth. To them, you can't separate those three strands. They have to go together.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. What's the big takeaway? How does this DNA actually work in the real world, day in and day out across all these different people and cultures?
Well, here it is. The ultimate point is that it's not a philosophy. It's a lifestyle. Being part of this movement isn't about memorizing a list of values from a handbook. It's about living them out, deeply. It's meant to become your personal operating system.
And when everyone does that, when they personally integrate this DNA into their lives, that's what creates this incredibly powerful shared identity. It's that invisible force that lets all those thousands of separate starfish arms act like one single body, all moving together, without a central brain calling the shots.
And that really leaves us with a final big question to think about. In a world so full of rigid top-down structures, what can a ruleless organization like this teach us about the true power of a shared identity?